He don't want easy fight. He wants the big boys. He wants the guys that are going to challenge him and going to bring danger. He wants to prove the people that he's the best. And he will prove it, and he will look badass with these guys.
Usyk just responded to Benavidez, and boxing fans are losing it. Oleksandr Usyk says he's ready for any challenge. Even David Benavidez, the heavyweight king, looked calm. But his message was crystal clear: if this fight happens, it could shake the entire boxing world.
Usyk was undisputed in the cruiserweight division before coming up to the heavyweight division and becoming undisputed there. So the thing is, does Benavidez want to go up to heavyweight, go up even more in weight, which he already did 25 pounds to go up to cruiserweight, and then go up more to meet Usyk there? Or will Usyk be coming down to...
Oleksandr Usyk has finally answered David Benavidez, and boxing fans cannot stop talking about it. The undefeated heavyweight champion made it clear that he is open to facing anyone, including Benavidez. Usyk stayed composed and confident, but his warning sent a strong message across the sport. If this blockbuster showdown ever becomes reality, it could completely change the landscape of boxing.
Decade right now. Take it while it's hot. Don't play with him, and don't let him play with you. It is not smart for David Benavidez to give Jai Patai a shot at his name right now, because he's hot right now. You go up and fight Usyk while you're hot, and it makes sense. You can always come back down and fight Patai if you want to. You understand? If you lost to Usyk, Patai fight still there. If you lose to Patai, Usyk fight gone. So be smart about this thing. Go take Usyk.
I said after the fight this past Saturday, after I witnessed what David Benavidez did, I said that I'd pick David Benavidez to beat most heavyweights. Not all, but most. And definitely not Usyk. Would I like to see it? Yeah, but there's fights that I like to see a lot more. For example, Bivol at 175, Jai Apataya. So would I like to see him move up to heavyweight to fight Usyk? Yeah, I think it would be fun. I think it would be a fun fight to make, but I would much rather see him...
Has a strange way of turning a single interview into something more intense than the fight itself, and that is exactly what happened after David Benavidez called out Oleksandr Usyk following the Zurdo Ramirez bout. What started as bold talk quickly became something far more serious once Usyk answered back with a response that felt less like hype and more like a calm warning from someone completely comfortable with chaos. Did Benavidez just target the one fighter nobody should push too far, and what was it about Usyk's reaction that suddenly made boxing fans feel uneasy?
On that one for sure, but I gotta say, the way Benavidez is looking, I think that gotta lean towards him.
He could do, think about, hold on, wait, what did I just hear? Think about what we just said on this show. And guys, it's with the caveat that he had the right guy in front of him, right? Zurdo at cruiserweight. But I have said so far in this show that Benavidez has to be in the conversation, considering he did it at 200 pounds, for fastest combination puncher of all time. Devin is saying that's a hell of a fight, him and Usyk. Teo just came out and said he'd lean Benavidez against the heavyweight champ.
And also, Usyk is turning 40 next year?
Yeah, he's 38.
That matters. Okay, 38, 39, 40, that's close. That's 40 years old, that matters. And the speed thing, Usyk's always fighting guys he's faster and quicker than.
Nobody expected the conversation to explode this fast after such a dominant victory, because boxing moves in a strange way. One moment a fighter is still celebrating a huge performance, and the next the internet is already throwing him into entirely different divisions, matching him against opponents he has not even had time to think about, let alone prepare for.
In 2027 for the heavyweight championship of the world. That is an absolutely insane fight. I know David Benavidez is very big and very fast, and Usyk is small for heavyweight in the modern times, but I know David Benavidez just did the jump from light heavyweight to cruiserweight. But the fact that he was a light heavyweight at all, and before that he was 168, jumping all the way to heavyweight, like that's Roy Jones shit. I could see him jumping to heavyweight.
Immediately after David Benavidez made a powerful statement with his performance against Zurdo Ramirez, the normal flow of boxing politics suddenly took an unexpected turn. Instead of focusing on the usual names around super middleweight or light heavyweight, his team began pushing a conversation that felt almost unreal. They started mentioning Oleksandr Usyk as if they were challenging the very limits of what boxing can produce.
Benavidez beats Oleksandr Usyk at heavyweight. Believe it or not, there are people that actually believe that David Benavidez beats Usyk, and it's like, bro, that's simply just crazy talk. I mean, I get it, Benavidez is a great fighter, but As of right now, he just got the cruiserweight, hasn't fought Alpataya yet, hasn't fought Bivol, hasn't fought Beterbiev, fights that we actually want to see. And the thing is, I do think Benavidez is crazy enough to take on that challenge against Usyk, but as of right now, that would be a huge mistake for him. Truthfully, Usyk already has his own battles to take care of at heavyweight, taking on guys like Callout, Wardley, Itama. Those are all way more realistic fights for him right now. One thing to mention though is the fact that David already said it's gonna be about 5 years before he goes to heavyweight. But the thing is, with Turkey involved, adding a lot more money to the table.
And they were not bringing it up in some casual maybe someday type of conversation. This felt serious. This felt bold. It was the kind of call-out that instantly changes the atmosphere in boxing, the kind that makes promoters sit back, exchange looks, and wonder how this discussion suddenly became real enough to matter.
Straight to Usyk. That's kind of crazy. In a boxing ring with those 10-ounce gloves on, anything can happen. And that's my words to David Benavidez, because I know he listens to me, he looks up to me, he thinks a lot of me. I'm gonna tell him it's okay to say.
The timing alone made the entire situation feel almost unbelievable. David Benavidez had just reminded everyone why so many people see him as one of the most dangerous fighters across multiple weight classes, yet instead of settling into the usual conversations about titles, rankings, and mandatory challengers, his team immediately looked toward the heavyweight division, a place where every mistake becomes costly and every opponent carries fight-ending power. And standing at the top of that mountain is Oleksandr Usyk, a man who has already changed the definition of dominance in modern boxing. He conquered cruiserweight, moved up to heavyweight, and then did far more than simply compete there. He dismantled massive opponents who were supposed to overwhelm him with size, strength, and experience. So when Benavidez's name started being connected to Usyk after such a huge victory, many fans treated it like exciting fantasy matchmaking. But others noticed something deeper behind it. The energy surrounding the call-out did not sound random or emotional. It felt calculated, almost like an idea that had quietly existed for a long time before suddenly becoming public at the wrong moment. Then came Usyk's response, or more specifically, the pause before it. Because unlike many fighters, Usyk rarely reacts just for attention. He does not chase headlines or throw himself into dramatic exchanges to stay relevant. And that is exactly why people listen so carefully when he finally decides to speak, because even his calmest words somehow carry a level of intensity that feels heavier than expected.
I think he chill. Usyk is bigger than Benavidez. Usyk will not stand in front of Benavidez and take all those combos. Is a great counterpuncher, elite footwork, will literally keep distance controls and counter Benavidez all night until he gets TKO like the ball.
Usyk.
Probably like about a 10%.
It's not zero.
It's not zero. Yeah, it's a higher percentage than Canelo. To be honest with you, so
I was gonna get to him.
Usyk definitely in the future, But first things first, Usyk is I give my respects to him. He's an all-time legend, and
The situation even more intense was the amount of time Usyk chose to say absolutely nothing. As David Benavidez's name kept appearing in heavyweight conversations, Usyk was already focused on something far more urgent. His entire attention was locked onto preparations for a massive showdown against Rico Verhoeven, a spectacle set near the pyramids of Egypt that combines elite combat, worldwide attention, and a historic atmosphere unlike anything else in boxing. For Usyk, this was never the moment to entertain distractions. Every part of his concentration was directed toward an opponent with his own dangerous skill set, which is why Usyk's first response to the Benavidez discussions felt more like silence than engagement. But in boxing, silence is rarely meaningless. More often it signals calculation. While fans argued over whether Benavidez could truly compete with heavyweight pressure and power, people close to the situation described him as the type of fighter who breaks opponents down mentally as much as physically, forcing them out of their rhythm until survival becomes more important than strategy. And his camp made it clear they believe boxing is moving towards something bigger. In their view, the usual lineup of challengers no longer matches the level of ambition they are chasing. This is no longer only about collecting titles or defending rankings. It is about building a legacy so massive that it pushes the conversation beyond the normal limits of weight divisions.
He could pick one of those off. But fighting Oleksandr Usyk, I don't care what age he is. If you give Oleksandr Usyk all of the advantages he already has, plus now he's not the massively smaller man, I don't see David Benavidez as great as I think he is. We have weight classes for a reason. And I don't see him really standing a chance there. And maybe if this is next year, maybe Oleksandr Usyk ages and he just falls off a cliff. I mean, if he does it, that's some all-time great shit. I just don't...
At the same time, he acknowledged something important. Fighters like Benavidez are not ordinary challengers. They bring a style that can trouble even the most established champions, especially those who rely heavily on timing and distance control. That is
when the debate became even more controversial, because the moment people start talking about legacy comparisons are impossible to avoid. Very quickly, the discussion shifted toward names like Canelo Alvarez and whether this new generation of champions is starting to change the definition of who truly represents the face of boxing. Some fans viewed the confidence coming from Benavidez's side as disrespectful, while others believed it was simply the mindset of a fighter who feels too big for the environment around him and is now chasing challenges on a completely different level. But boxing has never rewarded ambition just because it sounds impressive. It demands proof. And that is exactly why the Usyk conversation feels so complicated. The issue is not only about size. It is about timing skill sets and how styles translate under extreme pressure. Benavidez brings relentless volume, fast combinations, and non-stop aggression that forces opponents into uncomfortable exchanges. If that approach carries into heavyweight successfully, it could create problems that sheer size alone cannot solve. At the same time, critics continue pointing toward the harsh reality of heavyweight boxing. This division is not simply a larger version of the lower weight classes. It is an entirely different world where one mistake can instantly wipe away rounds of dominance. Even respected voices throughout the sport have responded with divided opinions, showing just how unpredictable this entire conversation has become.
Tell his Ring magazine outlet that he's interested in you versus Usyk. What do you think of that?
As of me, for having a competitive spirit, definitely does interest me. You know, like I said, at the end of the day, you don't know what's possible until you make it possible. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think I can't beat Usyk, but if I really put my mind into it and, you know, train for maybe like a year, because I barely came up to cruiserweight, I can't just go up to heavyweight like that. But if I train myself and I prepare myself, I could beat anybody in the world. But I'm never gonna say never, because maybe in the future when I'm like 35, we could go up to heavyweight. But right now, I'm really just taking care of the...
At the same time, there was also an important acknowledgement being made. Fighters like David Benavidez are far from ordinary contenders. They carry a style capable of creating serious problems even for elite champions, especially those who depend heavily on precision timing and distance management. That is where the conversation becomes truly fascinating, because boxing fans are almost as obsessed with hypothetical matchups as they are with real fights. Once the discussion exploded across social media and boxing forums, the fan base quickly divided into two completely different viewpoints. One side believes stepping into Oleksandr Usyk's world too soon could become a dangerous gamble, the kind of move that destroys years of carefully built momentum in a single night. The other side argues that avoiding the biggest challenges completely contradicts what it means to be viewed as a special fighter in the first place. Then the debate became even more analytical, with commentators comparing styles, past crossover attempts, and historical examples to explain whether a move like this could realistically succeed. But while the internet continues building fantasy scenarios, Usyk himself appears focused on something far more immediate. His preparation for major upcoming events reflects a fighter still fully committed to active dominance, not someone slowing down for legacy exhibitions or theoretical conversations.
Cross-divisional spectacle involving these names somewhere in the 2027 timeline, depending entirely on how both fighters progress.
I mean, the Mexican Monster's just become the unified cruiserweight champion of the world, and now we're talking about a super matchup in the heavyweight division? Boxers going crazy. Now, David has a long list of potential matchups in the light heavyweight division, such as your Artur Beterbiev and of course Dmitry Bivol. And in the cruiserweight division, none other than the man himself, Jai Pitaya. But a showdown against Oleksandr Usyk? Don't get me wrong, guys, it's intriguing, but did I opt for this? Nah. As for Oleksandr Usyk, there's other matchups that I need to see him take on first. I mean, the winner between Dubois versus Fabio Wally, or even Ajay Kabayel. But if Turki Alishik wants a matchup, most of the time, he gets it done. And don't get me wrong, guys, if this ever materializes in 2027, it will draw eyes.
At one stage, when the topic of future matchups came up, David Benavidez responded with a level of realism that caught many people off guard. He admitted that although the idea of fighting Oleksandr Usyk is exciting, there are still major challenges ahead before that kind of matchup can become realistic. Benavidez explained that he first wants to measure himself against elite fighters like Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, understanding that those battles would reveal whether his dominance can truly carry into even greater challenges. That honesty added a completely different dimension to the conversation because it proved that, behind all the ambition, there is still a clear understanding of how difficult the road really is. At the same time, boxing analysts continue breaking down the potential matchup from every possible angle, using technical analysis, stylistic comparisons, and even historical parallels from previous eras of the sport. Some argued that the right combination of speed, timing, and skill can occasionally overcome natural weight disadvantages if everything aligns perfectly inside the ring. Others immediately pushed back against that idea, reminding fans that heavyweight boxing often destroys romantic theories the moment real power becomes involved. Then the story took an even more fascinating turn. Rumors began spreading within industry circles that influential figures behind the scenes, including major financial players in boxing, are already aware of how enormous this fight could become from a business perspective. According to reports circulating among insiders, early long-term discussions may already exist around the possibility of turning this into a massive cross-division event somewhere around 2027, depending entirely on how both fighters continue to develop over the next few years.
Lived up to the nickname, didn't he? He did well. Right here. Mike, so after Benavidez's performance tonight, the next thing for Benavidez is what? You want to see him unify the division, go down to light heavyweight?
I want him to be where he feels comfortable at.
Did you talk to him before the fight? And if you did, what advice did you give him?
Yes, he's a great fighter. He knows what to do. I didn't have to give him any advice, but he fought great tonight.
That kind of timeline changes the entire conversation because it moves the idea away from pure fantasy and turns it into a genuine long-term possibility. It also helps explain why neither side appears eager to rush the matchup. Oleksandr Usyk still has immediate challenges that require complete focus, while David Benavidez is continuing to build the kind of heavyweight credibility needed to make a jump like this feel legitimate competitively instead of just exciting promotion. But no matter how much logic points toward patience, boxing fans rarely think patiently. Curiosity always takes over. People want to see what happens when non-stop pressure collides with elite ring control. They want to know whether overwhelming punch volume can disrupt precision and timing at the absolute highest level of the sport. They want answers to the bigger question of whether size, skill, and composure can truly balance out when neither fighter is willing to break under pressure. That is exactly why this discussion refuses to fade away. Beneath all the breakdowns, predictions, and promotional speculation, one central question continues pushing the story forward. What would actually happen if David Benavidez and Oleksandr Usyk shared a ring while both are still near the peak of their abilities? Until that question is finally answered inside the ropes, every warning, every call-out, and even every moment of silence will continue feeling like the beginning of something far bigger than an ordinary boxing matchup.
After Usyk is done with the kickboxer, assuming he wins, which, be crazy if he didn't, who is Usyk's next opponent? So I made a list of Usyk's possible next opponents. So first, we have David Benavidez. I don't think this is as likely as a lot of people seem to think. David Benavidez just had his first fight at cruiserweight. He's probably going to move back down the other way. There's more good fights for him there that he would be more favorited in, like against Bivol.
Right now, boxing is doing what it always does whenever something both dangerous and thrilling starts building in the distance. The sport is watching closely, waiting patiently, and debating endlessly while the fighters themselves continue moving quietly toward whatever collision may eventually come next. And while fans and analysts keep going back and forth online, the real story is developing far away from interviews and social media. In a world where timing matters more than public opinion and patience can carry just as much power as a perfectly landed punch, Oleksandr Usyk remains completely focused on the challenges directly in front of him, understanding that every fight at this point in his career comes with a unique level of pressure. At this stage, the mission is no longer about proving skill or earning respect. It is about protecting and strengthening a legacy that is already considered one of the most accomplished in modern boxing. That is why every move he makes feels carefully measured, with the kind of precision that leaves very little to chance. Meanwhile, David Benavidez is moving through a completely different energy, one fueled by momentum, hunger, and growing ambition. His success across multiple divisions has created a rare situation where confidence is no longer viewed as simple self-belief, but as something the public now expects from him every time he steps into the ring. Fans are no longer debating whether he can dominate where he currently stands. The real question has become how far he is willing to push that dominance before he finally reaches the limits of what is possible.